So thank you, and Bhante, can I welcome you to start the session?
Thank you, Brother Wilson. Thank you, everyone, for having me on this special event. I know Brother Wilson for a short time, but and we've been discussing about compassion, discussions, compassion things, and I think that this dialogue will help open up and then help figure out, help people in the country and far and wide figure out some solutions for the situation that they have been facing so far. Okay, so and you know me now. So the topic for today's discussion has been given as how COVID-19 has affected and changed our lives. And I think without more introductions about the topic, and you know that it has affected, it has been still affecting lives from many perspectives, right? So basically, as a Buddhist monk, my thoughts, insights could be more from the Buddhist, Theravada Buddhist, teachings for people who can find a way out for some issues. And I think Brother Mong is there who could, delineate and help, people understand this psychological, psychotherapeutic perspectives of the issue. So, we have been kind of locked down. I mean, we can't, keep up with the same lifestyle that we used to before. But I don't think that, the lifestyle is something that is always going, in a certain way. It changes time to time, and I think it has impacted immensely because of the situation. But I think we are coming up with a new lifestyle. Even the situation is going to be over. I think how we keep the distance, and how we need to look at the environment, how we need to look at the medical sciences, how we need to look at the science, how we need to look at spirituality. So all these have been sort of like getting their own different perceptions from the people's perspective. So in such a situation, we need to find out solutions for the situation. So I would basically like to share with you a couple things for us to think a little bit deeper. One of the things that a lot of people may be losing at this point is that taking, practicing good self-care. That's one of the very important things in a kind of a situation like this. For some countries, the situation has been worse, whereas some other countries, they are not that affected. But it all depends. But self-care is such an important aspect in our life in this situation. So we need to practice good self-care. So good self-care, to my understanding, is getting plenty of sleep and eating a healthy diet. So these are the two main things that we need to manage so that we can handle the situation. So sometimes when people are overthinking about the situation, what they could lack is sleep. At the same time, good food, right? So we need to specifically look into sleeping, time, if we have a consistent sleeping time, and the food, good food, healthy food. The second thing is maintain social interactions. You know that before this hit, we've been seeing people in person. We've been meeting. We've been doing such kind of things. But nowadays, people might get stuck. How we're gonna meet? But we know that technology is a good tool, so we need to use that. in a better way so we can keep up like this. Even we have this good platform to keep up with the people, especially in your group. They can talk. We need to a little bit get change, otherwise we can't keep up. But we need to open up for these cutting edge technological things so that we can keep up. We shouldn't need to be worried because we can't meet them in person. We have to find out different ways like this. We need to get physically active. So that's another thing in addition to taking care of you, like self-care. Some people might think that because Buddha also said in a couple of places, eating in moderation and having the physical fitness, they are two important things for someone to practice Noble Eightfold Path. Because if you are sick, if you are if you are eating too much, they all make up a huge mess up on your path to Nibbana. So I would say we need to get physically active. You might not be able to go to a gym or something like that, but you can find different ways to do that at home, right? I know that you may have some physical fitness equipment, so you need to rethink how I'm gonna get physically active without thinking too much. Oh, I can't go to a gym as I used to. I couldn't walk outside, right? In some countries you can go out, right? You can't walk that far. You have to stay in a certain area. So, but you can sort of look into different ways of getting physically active. That's number 3. Number 4 is reaching for healthy coping skills. Now, coping skills are really interesting in this kind of situation. Now, we haven't lost time for meditation. We haven't lost opportunities for, other, interesting habits like, reading articles, reading motivational, inspirational books, those kind of things. We can sort of like deepen our practice towards healthy coping skills. Now, a lot of people they may have some unhealthy coping, which I'm going to discuss after this thing. So we need to look at healthy coping skills in this kind of situation, right? So you need to find out what your favorite things are. So you may think that you need to develop those skills at this time. I know some writers are really happy this time. They can write a lot of books. They can those who read a lot of books, they might be happy too. So I mean, we need to find out such interesting habits so that we can better use of this time, rather than I'm at home, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything. So we have to look at differently. We need to eliminate unhealthy coping skills. That's really bad for many people, especially in a situation like this. People may tend to get used to emotional eating when they look at the statistic of how many people dying, how many people get affected. They think, okay, might I be the next, right? So when they are looking at these numbers, they're getting sort of like overwhelmed. They're getting sort of confused. That's why we need to be careful. So they might addict to emotional eating. They might drink alcohol. So these are issues. So that's why we have to find out healthy coping skills for any kind of situation, not even this COVID-19, but also any kind of situation. When you get stuck in your normal life, you try to look into that. The last thing I want to share with you is that this is a time for a lot of ruminations. So you are at home, you have no more interactions. So when you ruminating, try to distract yourself with a chore or activity. Sometimes distractions are helpful. Right? When we are doing mindfulness meditation, we don't like distractions. But ruminations for this kind of some kind of worst side of this situation could be a problem. That's why you need to distract such ruminations from good activity. So I think these steps these tips could be helpful just to begin with this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante, for the very wonderful tips. Right. Bhante, I know that you have written a book, right, on some tips for COVID-19.
I
Are these
did.
the tips, yeah? From
Yeah,
the book?
I wrote a book in Japanese in the first place. How to overcome COVID-19 fear, especially with some tips. And then I did an English book as well. They all are published on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what is the title of the book, Bhante?
The title I can tell you in the meantime while we are
Okay.
in the discussion, the exact title, the place.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, Brother Mong, would you like to give a short intro? Yeah. Sister Rency, can you unmute Brother Mong?
Okay. Thank you, Brother Wilson, for having me, and also thank you, Bhante, for your sharing. I'm Mong. You can call me Mong. I worked a lot with teenager, and I'd like to share a little bit about the COVID-19. It is a pandemic that is affecting everyone in the world, not only in Singapore. It is a situation that most of our teenager has not experienced before. And whether we are in it or not, the COVID-19 is going to change our way of life, even the situation has gotten better. So the question now is that how much we are able to, how much we are prepared to adapt the new change. And to take advantage, to look at the change in a positive way, so that even with this change, we continue to progress as how we live as normal as possible. COVID-19 in my experience with my counseling with a teenager, and especially also for parents who are working from home, they face a lot of challenges. And one of the things that I have realized was that one of the key challenges was the building of bonds between parents and children. Oftentimes, children spend most time in schools, and parents also spend quite a bit of time at work. So when the parents and children and their children coming together, working in the same place under the same roof, there will be I wouldn't say call it challenges, but there will be new findings that perhaps they have not realized in the normal setting, in the normal living. So for what I see is what we have realized is that the building of bond, parental bonds, sibling bonds, bonds between husband and wife, because we spend a big part of the time at work. So when coming under this one roof, then how do we adapt ourselves to bridge this bond, to strengthen this bond, so that together as a family unit to cope with the COVID-19 challenges. I can see that the news out there seems to be that there are many countries are easing their approach in the lockdown, and there was some good news saying that perhaps they are able better to understand the situation better, and therefore life will be getting back as much as possible to normalcy. But the challenge remains that some parents may unfortunately be out of work, financially situation may be affected. So things like that, it does happen. But the question is how, I mean, one of the things is how do we able to cope with the challenges of COVID-19 in that sense that to take full advantage of what the government's policy has given us. This is a very strong that we have to work on that. And also the other challenges will be for some family, how do they able to stretch that dollars that they are with them to the best situation until the situation gets better. So for what I see is that family faces 5 challenges. The first challenges would be, I will put it physiological challenges in the sense that, I would say put generally 3 challenges. One is the cognitive challenges. Second is the social, and third, spiritual challenges. First, cognitive challenges is how the family as a unit to look at the situation, and so that apart from building bond, to face the situation together so that they can come out stronger. That is the challenges, in a way that how family could work together to strengthen that bond. Secondly, there will be the social challenges, because a lot of us are being kept at home. And the social challenges is that some of the teenagers may find that they are being cut off from their friends. So the other will be some family may not be able to do visits to their parents. And all those are real situations, and it does bring along stressor. Bring up stresses in the family. So, and this will be the social challenge. And what is important is that our family will be able to leverage on the technological to bridge that connection, to strengthen that connectivity as well as the social network. Thirdly is that this will be the opportunity for family and for every one of us to be able to connect our spiritual challenges together with our social challenges. Have we lost spirits? There will be a part where we start to lose confidence in ourselves, where the situation may not seem to be welcoming. And we'll take one of the situation is for now really is for us to find the connections between spiritual, social, and cognitive. And all these have to be coming together in order to work through these challenges and come out stronger. What I want to emphasize is that it has to be stronger, because whether the COVID-19 situation will be over sooner or not, but our normal way of living, our new normal will develop. There will be new way of doing things. And it will be important for us to adapt to these new changes. And bond becomes very important, and all coming together to face the challenges. So the question is, one of the challenges that I thought would be, how would, from the individual levels, to build that spiritual, to strengthen that spiritual, to work from inside out. To work from inside out in a way that by working from inside out, to understand the situation around, and also the working from inside in, which is what most of the Buddha are teaching us, to work from inside out in order to connect with the world. So by working from inside out and getting in connection with the world, in that sense, we are able to send things around us to have a better grasp of the challenges of people around us are facing. So in that sense, we are, in a certain sense, we are able to bridge that empathy, to bridge that connection with everyone. And with that, we will be, in a sense, hope that this will strengthen our inner resilience to overcome this situation. Yeah. So what I would hope that the new normal is going to be in, our normal way of living is going to change. Perhaps we have to strengthen the words. What I would want to emphasize is adaptability. How do we strengthen that adaptability so that to come out as a family stronger? Because really now is really the best opportunity to build that strength in the family as a unit, as a force itself, to overcome the mutual support for one another to overcome this COVID-19 situation. Yeah, so that's what I hope that will provide some sharings on understanding. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I realized I was on mute. Right, thank you, Brother Mong, for a very insightful intro. So now we get into Q&A time. We will unmute everyone, but may I ask if you have some background noise, probably you can mute it so that others will be able to hear the questions and answer easily. Some of you have sent your question in advance, but I think we'll start with anyone from the session here first. Please raise your hand or just direct a question. You can direct the question to either Bhante or Brother Mong or to any one of them specifically. Anybody? Okay, we are a very cozy group, so don't be shy.
Good morning, I'm Simon.
Hi, Simon.
Yeah, I have a question for Bhante. Okay, just starting, Bhante was mentioning that during this COVID, you have managed your sleeping time. And also, I have a question because my son, he tends to sleep well, but he sleeps in the middle of the night. Even he tried to sleep in the early, say about 10 o'clock. So I think he'll wake up at 4 o'clock. So the time of sleeping is enough, but when he starts to sleep again after maybe, wake up at 4 o'clock, then he will start to do something, and then he'll finish his work about 6 o'clock, then he start to sleep until 12 p.m. So do you think this is a good sign? Okay, having, have enough sleep.
Got it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, I mean, self-care, what I was trying to say about sleep in terms of self-care is that one needs to have a consistent, it would be nice if everyone has a consistent sleep time and pretty much sleep style. I know that if you can sleep before 12, morning, it would be nice, but some people having hard time, because of the situation. But at least we can be happy that he's sleeping for some time. But there are things he could do depending on the Buddhist teachings. Buddha says that if someone can practice loving kindness meditation, guideline-based loving kindness meditation, that could help anyone to sleep well and wake up well. So that's a good teaching. And I'm not sleep. What do you call such a person? Kind of a scientific person about sleep things. But I would say that based on the Buddhist teachings, it's good to practice meditation. But in your son's case, I have no specific thing to say. Maybe Brother Mong can share with us something from the psychological aspect.
Yeah, thank you. We need to have, I have a similar experience. My sleeping pattern is normally when I sleep at 11 o'clock. And what will happen, I wake up at 3:30, 3:45. And then I try not to get up as much as possible or try to stay still, do breathing exercise. Then perhaps half an hour later, I would go back to sleep and wake up at 5. That is my routine. But I think perhaps the current situation may have, whether the person may have realized it or not, they may be experiencing some form of anxiety because the feelings around the environment has changed. It was unlike the olden times where we can walk with friends, do some activity, and then we get tired and we come back. We will more like really in the resting mode, and subsequently we get tired ourselves physically and we go to sleep. But then the situation like this is a lot of bearing is on the emotional aspect of us, that we are not physically tired, but we are mentally tired in certain sense. So when sometimes when we sleep, there will also, I would say that there will possible anxiety in us that we are experiencing it, but we are not aware of it exactly. But it is building in us. So that anxiety causes us perhaps at a certain point in time to be awake. And when at the moment when we were awake, sometimes we were wondering, why am I awake? What am I going to do? What am I going to since I wake up so early? So what am I going to do after this so that I want to go back to sleep? Because by being awake too early, you're afraid that you may not have enough energy on the next day. But the fact that you can't sleep, so likely that the general thought would be, perhaps I want to do something to get myself tired and I go back to sleep. But once they go back to sleep, it stretches the sleeping times to perhaps much longer. And when they wake up, perhaps you'll be feeling more tired. And therefore, again, the anxiety would be within them. So my suggestion would be perhaps I know Simon's the two teenagers are quite men already. So so perhaps is to work out a routine of something that they will do consistently over a period of time. I would believe that most people are feeling it as is of now. We are somewhat physically not tired, but mentally we are tired. There's so much anxiety. The tiredness is not about we think a lot, we think too much. The tiredness is in the anxiety of what will be happening next. What will be happening to my social circles? For those who maybe, they may have concern about what will be next for me. If they may be going to university, what will be their plan, what will be the career and all that. And suddenly when they wake up, they find that there is certain things that they are worried of, and yet they can't do anything. They're so trapped within them to want to get it done. So that generates a lot of anxiety in them. So I think it is important that to practice self-awareness, the arising of emotion, the arising, the feeling of loneliness, and to be aware of the inner conversation. What am I thinking this way? What brings about this anxiety? To be clear of, yes. Then having been able to be clear of the cause of this thought, this anxiety, then perhaps to do something to that's helpful, so that to reduce this sense of loneliness, this anxiety. I would say the big word is uncertainty that causes a lot of anxiety on people.
Thank you, Brother Mong.
Thank you,
There are some questions.
Bhante and Mong.
There are some questions here I've seen on the chat. Brother Ding Yan, would you like to ask a question on behalf of them?
Sure, definitely. So our very first question in the group chat actually states that time change or things changes. So ultimately, how do we work within oneself to start with during this period?
So, Bhante or Brother Mong, either one of you want to answer this question?
Maybe I'll share a little, as I just mentioned, shared earlier. Yes, time to change, and we can't bring back time. So I think the most important for us is to embrace adaptability. We need to adapt. And in the first step for us to embrace adaptability is to work from inside in. So when I say work from inside in, is really practicing the teaching of the Buddha, understanding the concept, the content, what they call the intent of what the Buddha wants to tell us. By looking inward in, then we can connect to the outside world. I hope that would be beneficial for their questions.
Thank you, Brother. Bhante, you have any words of advice to give on this question?
I do.
Yeah.
So inner journey. So I think one has to, start work within, like this inner journey from a mindfulness perspective. I would share with you an acronym RAIN, R-A-I-N, not the physical rain. So this RAIN acronym, which stands for different things in the real mindfulness techniques given in the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddhist teachings, Pali teachings. We first need to pay attention to insight. So that's why this acronym is really good. So R stands for recognizing. Now we need to recognize what's going on now. Now I'm talking to everyone. Everyone is starting one's own journey, right? This inner journey. So everyone is looking within by recognizing what's going on. R stands for recognizing. And A stands for accepting, right? So when you recognize, then the next thing to do is to accept. Now, that's what I guess Brother Mong was trying to say, adaptability. Right? You won't adapt to anything without accepting, right? So we need to, if anything is really giving you a hard time, be that the sleep, be that other things, maybe your job, maybe your children, maybe your people at home. So we need to understand that particular thing, and then we need to accept. A stands for acceptance. And then I stands for investigate. So we need to investigate this acceptance. We need to investigate from different channels, mentally, physically, emotionally. Yeah, there are different things that we could do. The first thing I would suggest is to, when you are having a hard time for anything, not even the situation, you need to investigate physically. Now, let's say when you are anxious, when you are depressed, when you are stressed out, when you are tired, like as Brother Mong delineated, mentally tired, physically tired, the first thing is that you can notice some internal things happening inside of your body. Maybe you're having heavy breaths. You might be, tired. You could notice, things inside. That could be physical investigations about sort of issue, and then mental issues. Why you are reacting so fast? Why you are reacting too much? Why you are overreacting? Why you are getting upset? So why you are trying to criticize so fast? Why you are trying to respond so fast? So all these things are mental, emotional investigations. We need to look into that too, that section too. So if you investigate the problem physically, mentally, emotionally, then that would mean this I, what I stands for. So R stands for recognizing, A stands for accepting, I stands for investigations through different channels. N stands for, that could be the biggest thing, both for the ultimate goal of Buddhism, as well as the most important thing for conflict resolutions. N stands for non-identification. Now, if something happened to us, people trying to think that this happened to me, so I should respond, right? But this happened to my previous self, right? Somebody blamed me, and I was stressed for something that was before, but now that it is not further existing. But I'm trying to construct a connection between me and that event. But it was my previous self. That was previous me. It's not present me. So then when you non-identify, that's what we are practicing anatta, non-self. And that means we are deconstructing us from the particular event. It's a little bit hard, but that's what we need to attain on our day-to-day issues, as well as this long-term dukkha issue, suffering issue. So I would say, if somebody is to ask me, how do I start my journey within? I would say one has to start from mindfulness practice, but mindfulness is a deep practice. One has to deepen that practice. But in short, I would suggest them to use this RAIN methodology in daily issues. Even this situation, every time when you are tired, when you are upset, when you are annoyed. If you can use this methodology, you will be able to figure out something as the way out.
Thank you, Bhante. Bhante, very easy to remember, rain. Bhante has put the Buddha's teaching into very easy, simple acronym to remember, right? So every time you just remember range, right? Recognize, acceptance, investigate, and non-identification. Very good. Brother Ding Yuan, are there further questions from the chat group?
Yeah, from the chat group, I noticed there's another question. This seems to be directed to Brother Mong. How do I manage my kid's emotion as he is extremely angry whenever he play games most of the time of day? So he's currently 10 years old.
Okay, this is a common, in fact, this is a common, it's very prevalent that we have seen during this COVID-19 where everybody are working from home. And there was a period of time before the school starts, there were home-based learning. And this is what happened. You see, the thing is that the children has been with their handphone most of the time. I would say most of the time, but it is a time when we are at home, we often see our children holding with their handphone. But then the other thought of it is that if we are not around, then our children will still be holding handphone. So that brings about certain thoughts, the way we are seeing things. I can see that parents are very, I mean, sometimes when they are, now the thing is that parents or children are spending extended times at home most times, and that would, and when this happens, parents are seeing their children how they spend their times on the phone. Yeah, and the thoughts I have is that this, for the children to be taking their time off the phone, there have to be something to replace that off time, because the children has been on the phone most time. That's the way they connect with the outside world. This is the way they connect with a non-human person. So the thing is that if we take the phone off from the children without negotiating a win-win situation, an acceptance situation, then what would happen is that the children will feel that a part of their support structure has been removed, and that they will probably be very angry. Yeah. So, like we've just mentioned, the working from inside in is to feel most parents will get angry because they have a certain perspective of what it means by spending too much time on the phone. That's one aspect of parents' point of view. Parents under a way of their expectation. But the children way of interacting with the phone will have their certain expectation of why are they, they have certain reason why they are connected to the phone. So one part of it is their support structure. One part of it from the parent perspective, there is a certain expectation that they want for the well-being of the child. But perhaps the child may not see it that way. Yeah. So if the parents will, my advice to parents usually would be to work from inside in. When we see our child playing too much on the phone, spending too much time on the phone, the first thing that arises in us will be the arising of anger and the arising of the wanting to want the child to stop playing phone and do something else. Yeah. So the question now between playing phone and doing something else, the playing phone is what the child wants to do. That's how she spends time, she feels comfort being. And the something else that we parents want the child to do may not be what they want. So they may not connect to what we want them to do. Say, for example, saying some outdoor games, playing maybe family time. But the thing is that all along before the COVID situation, that is the lifestyle they are in. And suddenly we want them to change to a different lifestyle. It will take time. So I thought what is most important is for adults to work from inside in to feel the arising of why I have this emotion coming up. If I have this emotion coming up, anger, then why am I feeling angry when I'm seeing my child on the phone? So then perhaps by feeling that way is that it is in fact, perhaps it is a sense of helplessness from the parent's perspective, because I wanted my child to stop playing the phone, but I'm helpless to stop them. So they want to create that effect as soon as possible by a more direct approach by scolding, nagging, snatching the phone away. But that will also escalate the emotion in the child. So if that happens, then perhaps the child will get very angry. So now the thing is, if we want our child to take their time off the phone, perhaps we may want to talk to the child to replace that phone away time with something that they can bond together. May not be the normal activity that parent-child would do, but it may be something different. But the child must enjoy doing it. Then that can be replaced. So apart from seeing the child being angry, then we ask ourselves, how do we respond to our child's anger? From the parent's perspective, the child is not an angry child. It is the anger that makes the child angry. So if you look at that from that perspective, we take that anger out of the child and together with the child to look at this anger together. Yeah. So when we help our child to look at this anger together, then we are no longer seeing our child as the one who's being attached to the phone, but it is the child, the anger that is not allowing the child to attach to the phone that manifests as an anger. Then now we work together. Do the adult respond to this anger? And when the adult responds to this anger, then what will happen is there will be two anger that's coming up together. One is the anger that is making the child angry, and the anger that's making the adult angry. And the underlying of the anger from the adult is the helplessness. It's the helplessness to change the child's way of doing, but not the anger. Yeah. So having from that perspective, then perhaps that what Bhante just mentioned about the end, the non-identification. We can make full use of it. My suggestion would be perhaps the adult may want to move themselves out of their own body as an imaginary person and look at themselves as a third party in responding to the child. So the third party will look at the child in a way of looking the two anger that is responding together and see what is our child's need. Because the child may not have enough coping skills to kill the insecurity in them, to manage to cope with the insecurity in them, and therefore playing games is something that gives them the security. By removing that security, they will respond. So perhaps that I hope would, for adults, that's why it is important for us to feel the arising of an emotion, look at it, what brings about the emotion, and respond to the child appropriately in that sense, and work together in a win-win situation. I hope that will help to provide some suggestions.
Right. Thank you, Brother Mong. I see it as too negative become a positive. So before we turn back to the question from the chat, let me trade back again to the people here on the Zoom. Anyone has question to raise to Bhante or to Brother Mong directly? Please raise your hand or just ask your question direct to either one of them. Okay, if not, Brother Ding Yuan, may I suggest that you raise the question that was posted in the registration, right?
Yeah. So we have some questions that was asked by some of our registered participants. Since just now Brother Mong took one question from the participant in this group, the next question is actually kind of directed to Bhante. It is quite specific in the sense that the participant asked, how can we as Buddhists get through this pandemic or even life crisis? And as anxiety, worries, fear of uncertainty always pop up in our mind, which I know that is a reality. And even this is happening without the pandemic. So yeah, in a Buddhist point of view, how can we actually get through all these things?
Yeah, RAIN methodology. That's the practice. Because that question not only applies to a situation like this, but also to our normal day-to-day life until we die. Anxiety, stress, they all pop up because from the Buddhist point of view, we are in a world with dukkha. So to end the dukkha, to at least manage the dukkha, we need to be mindful every moment. If we are not mindful and then do the rest of the steps like in the RAIN methodology, we will be in trouble. So we need to keep it consistently for over a period of time. Not just you meditate now and you are okay. And it is not just a meditation that you do cross-leg. It is a mentality. It's a perspective. So every time you think you are stressed out, something like that, you need to bring that, methodology so that you will understand what the problem is, because your problems are not mentioned. It's just the anxiety and stress, depression. So they can come up for different reasons. So you could use that universal methodology from the Buddhist teachings.
Right. Thank you, Bhante. Sister Shomi, I missed you showing your hand earlier on. Do you have a question for us? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's for both Bhante and Mr. Mong. Okay. We started talking about the RAIN. It means how to work within ourselves. What about the self and the environment?
Self and environment.
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually brought this RAIN methodology to talk about the inner journey, but it is not confined to inner journey.
Okay.
So the problems can come in different forms. It could be from outside. Actually, the issues come from outside, but they obstruct oneself. Mm-hmm. So be that from environment, such kind of things. You could even use that methodology for environment issues too. Like nowadays, people are having a huge discussion about people have been really unethical to environment, right? I don't know. Informal discussions. So maybe it's time to rethink how we are caring environment, not just in one country, this whole universe. So we need to have a better, view towards environment. That's why Buddha in one of the stanzas in Dhammapada says, "Vanang chindatama rukkam." Buddha says, cut down the forest of defilements, but not the trees. So he was saying that we need to protect trees, not even trees. This whole, not the other beings, except humans. So we need to have a better sort of a reconsideration about how we need to, perceive and support this environment and other beings. So I think it's not exempt. This RAIN methodology is not exempt from environment. So it applies to oneself and all the other external factors.
So it's time to reflect. How are we interacting with the environment? And if you can bring a little bit of compassion to the world, probably we will have a better world then.
That's what I think Brother Wilson do by compassion.
Yeah,
multiply.
compassion. Yeah, I'm very impressed. Yeah.
That's what he says. So I think yeah, we need to. I guess in Pali we have two words, bhaviti and bahuli karoti. Have you ever come across these two words? These are
I'm
verbs.
not familiar with
Okay.
Pali yet.
The
Yeah.
Buddha says when one practices any virtue, be that patience, be that compassion, be that altruistic joy, be that loving kindness, one needs to practice. That is bhaviti. Also, one need to multiply. We have to find out different ways of putting that in action. So I think this is the time we need to refigure out differently how to better take care of other beings and the environment.
Right.
I guess the governments, world organizations, not only for them, but also for each person. Maybe our curriculum have to be changed at schools too. How to give a better perspective for children, how to take care of, environment. I guess this is going to be a, purification of everything. I guess pretty much everything. So yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah.
I have a question here that was sent to me personally. There are reports that home abuse violence is on the increase. What's your view on this? This question is directed to both Bhante and Brother Mong. A comment on the increase in home abuse that we see. Because
I think Brother Mong will talk a little bit, and I will answer after. Yeah.
Okay, Brother Mong, can you?
Okay. Yeah. Yes. This is. Yeah. We are aware that. I think it's in the news. Some statistics perhaps have suggest that there is increased violence at. I wouldn't say family abuse or violence at home. It is very much on the stressor level that each individual are experiencing. Say, for example, the child will be experiencing certain inner struggle, inner energy, emotional, a negative emotion that is holding in there. Parent will also be feeling the stressor, and there are many reasons parents are holding on that stressor. And when these two stressors coming together, it may manifest in different way. And what is most important is, when I say different way, there will be positive way and negative way. So as it works like, as I mentioned earlier, it is not the person is not angry. It's always the anger that is making the person behave that way. And angry is a normal emotion. It's an emotion that it's part of our defense system. But the thing is, how do we deal with this anger? How do we deal with this emotion? That is really the questions. And as I say, the problems will never be the problems, but the dealing with the problem is the problems. So when two stressors come in the home, how it is important that for adults to be able to work that connection between the social challenge, the cognitive challenge, and the spiritual challenge. And how do they find that connect? Oftentimes, the stressor is always be there. The inner building of anger will always be there. The uncertainty, the helplessness. No, the uncertainty is perhaps financial uncertainty, job uncertainty, and a lot other things. In also, not only the uncertainty that was brought about by the COVID-19 situation, there were already perhaps deep-seated anxiety that was coming together, blend together with the current situation, and it kind of manifested in that way. And worse still, when the family are coming under together within the same group, and that's where there is this interaction of manifestation of negative emotion. So now the question is not about whether it is okay to be angry or not. I think it is okay to feel that emotion, but how do we deal with the emotion? How do we respond to emotion? That is really the matter. So perhaps that's why I would strongly also suggest that in this situation in particular, to find the connect with our spiritual part of us and the cognitive part of us, to see when there is an arising of this emotion, how are we going to deal with it? Yeah, so it is, as I said, it's not always, it is not the emotion that it's not the people are not emotional, but it is that negative emotion that that affect the person to manifest in a certain way. And that can be managed by working from within, understanding the arising of the self, even the sense of wanting to outburst. But if we are able to find that cognitive connect, social connect and spiritual connect, and through cultivation of mindfulness, perhaps we will maybe able to mitigate the situation, the family violence situation. So what is most important, as I want to also share that, to follow on from Xiao Mei's question, it is important for us to realize that we are human beings. We are also human beings. We have our weakness, and it is important for us to also work to realize to work with ourself, the inner self in us, and the inner self in us. When we manifest the inner self in us, the kindness, this will create a certain, I would say, certain mental field that other can feel it as well, and then we propagate this field to them, and they will have that therapeutic effect on others. Yeah, I hope that will be helpful.
Thank you, Brother Mong. Bhante, you'd like to add on?
Yeah. Before COVID-19, the situation, people had a lot of choices what time they want to be with their family people, right? Now, when you were talking about kind of violence, it could be different types of violence that can come up to different places. But I would say people had choices. They made choices before the situation, but now they are choiceless. They have to stay with the people, maybe for a long time. So this is the time, from the Buddhist point of view, we need to practice compassion. But what is compassion that can apply to different real life situations at home? I think we have a lot of unmatching things in our lives, especially when you are, in a relationship, be that a newly wedded couple, be that a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, be that a kind of an extended family. We all have shortcomings in different perspectives, but we largely ignore them before the situation, because we could ignore them, but at times now they may come up in different great lengths. So that's when we need to compassionately look into those shortcomings. At least we understand the other person. Maybe if the other person doesn't like you speak up a lot, just lower your tone, right? If your children are really grumpy, snappy, you just need to understand how better I am going to talk to these children, how better I'm going to talk to my husband, wife, and other maybe parents. So you need to find out these unmatching things and how I can bridge these shortcomings from compassion. And the most important thing that you're going to use is patience. So all the virtues in Buddhism, they are rooted in khanti, patience. If you don't have patience, you can't be compassionate. If you don't have patience, you can be into metta. If you don't have patience, you can be into altruistic joy. If you don't have patience, you can be into equanimity, we call upekka. That means patience is the root cause of all the skillful activities, right? For example, if you are not patient, you can come onto Zoom and spend this hour and a half because you are patiently waiting to learn from each other, right? This like-minded environment, right? So patience comes first, and I guess that is the main regulator that regulates all the other small and large scale of good activity. So I guess in order to decrease this home base mismatching things, this environment, please try to be patient. Before you try to be patient, you need to be compassionate, because without compassion you can't be patient too, right? Because you know why you are patient. You are patient because you need to be compassionate towards these people. So then you slowly, gradually understand what to do, when to start, where to go. Maybe before the situation, you sort of acted upon your close people in a sort of way, but now they are living with you more than that time, longer than that time. So you need to know how better I'm going to talk to them, how better I'm going to switch things with them, right? Sometimes there's one TV at home, so people are trying to change the channels sometimes in the same house. So they are having a big time, I want to watch that, I want to watch this, right? Patience, compassion, looking at, okay, maybe I'm gonna watch YouTube, right? This program will be recorded, and I'm gonna watch YouTube, the same program on YouTube. Let my other people watch that this time live on TV. So you're gonna look at different strategies to minimize the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante. Brother Kakiet, you have a question for Bhante, right? Brother Kakiet?
Bhante, you mentioned during the Sister Xiaomi's talk that question was that you need to look into what destroying your to cut down the defilement of the defilement forest, but not the defilement trees. That's the part I don't really understand.
Okay. So there's a stanza. I mean, don't take it as it's a metaphor, actually. It's a metaphor. So in literature, Buddha says the defilements are like a forest. Okay, so so cut that forest of defilement. It's a mental metaphor, but not the actual trees in the forest or anywhere. So we need to protect the flora and fauna, but not the actual trees. So Buddha used this metaphor to talk about defilements, and then at the end, Buddha said, "But not the trees, but not the flora."
So you mean to say
Does
that
it make sense?
the actual trees you don't cut down, but you're talking
No,
about
no,
defilement.
never.
The defilements that you have is like a forest. When you have one, it will grow very quickly. So you need to cut down the forest of defilements, is it? Like if you have greed, the greed will grow out. The greed will grow like a forest.
Well, I don't think I get what you said. Maybe you are kind of breaking up. Would you mind repeating the question?
So are you saying that your defilements like greed, they grow very quickly.
They grow up like a tree. Mm-hmm.
They grow up very quickly and they spread like a forest, is it? Your mental defilements.
Well, Buddha uses this tree example for tanha. Buddha say, if you cut a tree at different levels, the tree will start to grow. And Buddha said you need to uproot the tree. Then the tree will not grow. The tree is tanha. But that's kind of in a metaphoric way Buddha try to describe that thing. It's not don't take it as the actual tree, the forest, jungle. No, not that kind of stuff. Buddha trying to use how the tanha, craving, starts to grow. That's why he used this tree example, but not the actual tree.
So he's also trying to say that if you have greed or tanha, you need to uproot the entire tanha, or if not, you will spread very quickly. Is it?
If you can.
Okay.
Yes.
So you need to notice it and take it out, so it will grow very quickly and
Well,
will affect you.
that's the main goal of the noble path, but
Okay.
it could take some time for some. It might not be that easy in the first place, but we need to gradually, at least to cut it down to a lower extent.
How do
They
you know
won't
you have
go
cut
very
down?
fast, that higher, you know.
So how do you know that you have cut it down, your defilements like tanha and craving and stuff like that?
Oh, that's a good question. So we know that we need to do introspection about our fetters. In the Buddhist teachings, Buddha says that there are 10 fetters that bind us to samsara. This process of becoming. The root cause is tanha. So the more you get rid of those factors, those fetters, the more you are, the closer you are into the nibbana. So let's say if you get rid of first three, you become a sotapanna, the first
The
stage
what?
of
Host tree? What do you say? Host tree?
first three fetters.
Oh.
First three fetters, and the second two fetters, and the last five. So I would say one of the three fetters for one to get rid in the first place is personality belief. I would say sakkaya ditthi, because we always say it's me, I, myself. I think that applies to this occasion too, because we are struggling with this I, me, myself, thing in our normal life. I want to do that, and this is mine. Nobody can touch this. This mentality. This is a huge mentality. But Buddha says we need to get rid of that by doing certain things. I guess this leads to a different big conversation. I would just stop at here. But what Buddha said was defilements which lead to tanha, they are like trees. So we need to cut down. At the end, need to uproot. So tree will not grow.
How do you
But
know you
not
have
the
cut
actual
down?
trees.
Yeah, but how do you know you have cut down your defilements? How do you know you have cut
By
down your defilements?
becoming an arahant, by that time you have uprooted. It's a personal experience. From this experience, we are not able to feel that. By
At
attaining
least you cope
nibbana,
with that, right? At least you cope with that.
at least
At
what?
least you have cope with that.
At least
COPE.
cope.
Cope. COPE.
How to cope?
Yeah, at least if you know you have defilements, how do you cope with that?
Well, I mean, okay, that's a good question. Cravings are coming to us in different ways in our normal life. For example, food cravings. In modern life, we know that we have a lot of food cravings. A lot of you have food cravings. If you are a person who have less food cravings, then you are better. You are better. If you have less other cravings, you are better. So you are personally understanding your cravings. So you have a personal perception. You have a personal perception about lessening, reducing your cravings. So it's an empirical thing. You will perceive that if you do that. But it's not like you are trying to look into, oh, this is craving, how this is trying to do kind of a do only a textual basis. It won't help. We need to put those teachings into practice slowly, gradually.
Recognize your rain, is it?
Recognize your own cravings using the RAIN methodology, and then working towards how to deconstruct you from tanha.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thank you.
Kaket, for asking those questions, and many of us will benefit. Thank you, Bhante, for the guidance in those questions. Brother Dingyan, there's one more question that came from the registered participants, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for this participant, unfortunately, the question is that he has recently lost a job. So how can we actually cope with the stress of no income?
Who's gonna answer that question?
Mm.
I'm going to
Maybe
answer that question. Oh, you're gonna answer that question because I just talked a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll just share that I hope will be helpful. First is that we want to understand between the loss of income or the lost income means no added income or total depleted of income. So now the question, as I shared earlier, is about with what we have, perhaps it definitely will go into, it will eat into our savings. And now it's about, my thought would be, the challenges is real. The challenges is real. The stressor is real. And this loss of income, it does impact the affected person in two ways. One is the negative self-criticism. Secondly, the uncertainty. And thirdly is what they're going to do in the future. That will affect their confidence. Yeah. So, but with these three things that this person is struggled with, this participant is struggled with, one of the thoughts that perhaps would be helpful is to look inward. What is causing, what was the thing that they are telling themselves in response to the current situation that they are in? With the resources that they may have, how they can work in a way from the whole family perspective to stretch the resources, the financial resources that they have. What are the resources out there that the government has put out to support our people? And also, what are other resources that can help them to continue to sustain? It may not be a much, but kind of sustained, so that the impact of a sense of helplessness or hopelessness will not be that strong. So really, perhaps it is I just mentioned earlier, it is something that the family have to work together to work through the family, to rework family routine, rework family's expenses, to kind of cut down as much as possible. I mean, I must say as much as possible in a way that the dollar can be stretched to the time when the easing up happened. And when the easing up happened, then perhaps they can look at opportunity where they can continue to sustain the income and build that slowly. But what is most important for that participant is be mindful of the self-criticism, be mindful of the thoughts that telling them that they are not good enough, or the thought that's constantly telling them that, though this is a helpless situation. Have to recognize that this situation is transient. It is surmountable, but it takes a longer time. So, developing, I mean, that's the reason I was suggesting that we have to be mindful of our negative self-thoughts and do not allow these negative self-thoughts to pull the situation down so much that when the situation get better, they no longer have that energy, emotionally and mental energy to progress forward, little by little. Yeah, that's all I could thought. And to add on to what Bhante just mentioned about the Buddha patient. Patient is the first virtue, the value for all positive development or positive learning. I mean, maybe it's a thought that I have. When we are not feeling well, we go to see a physician, and when a physician calls us a patient, and the patient itself is a very strong virtue. So what the Buddha has kind of mentioned is that whenever you go to a physician, they call you a patient. Patient is a very strong virtue. When we start to develop patience, we are already on the journey of recovery, or in fact, already we have a certain element of self-heal before we see the actual patient. That's why we are being called patient. Yeah, I hope this. Yeah.
So Yeah.
Thank you, Brother Mong. Any other questions from those participants in the Zoom? Just ask your question directly to Bhante or to Brother Mong.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, please introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Pauline. I just have a question because I came in quite late, so I missed out some parts. The talk on about reducing factors and also being compassionate and also patience. One thing that I realized through this time is that sometimes when we are being patient and kind, it is taken as being submissive and a weakness instead of a positive thing. Although we know that in Buddhism, this is considered something that is good and we need to progress with it. However, in today's society, it is quite tough to do so. And personally, myself and also another colleague has previously encountered this and made us wonder if we should give up being kind. So I previously had internal struggles on these items, but I understand that this being kind is actually internal. But however, externally, we also need to ensure that we are balanced and not to be seen as weak. So my question is, how do we actually strike a balance in today's society so that while we can reduce the factors internally, we are still being able to be seen as someone to be respected in when we are working in the corporate world and things like that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Bhante, you like to answer this question?
Yeah, I would like to. Yeah, very good question. I think it's a question where we need to really look into as a loophole of kind of a loophole when we ignore in practicing good virtues. Now there's a story for that because nobody need to be a victim of somebody just because they practice good things, compassion or etc. There's a story in the Buddhist teachings. At that time animals used to talk, right? There was a snake at the time of the Buddha who wanted to take 5 precepts. So he approached a sage, a hermit, and then the snake told the sage, "Dear sage, please give me 5 precepts." And the sage said, "No, I won't give you five precepts because you are a snake. You're gonna bite. So you're gonna break the first precept." No, I'm gonna take care of my precept. Don't worry about it, because I have a huge patience. I'm gonna do that. Please give me the 5 precepts. And according to the story, sage gave the precepts to the snake. After taking precept, the snake summoned courage to practice and protect, not to break the precept. And what happened? He was going somewhere, and then there was a farmer who was trying to stack firewood. He got stuck inside the firewood, and then he now is trying not to bite the farmer. So now the farmer brought the firewood stack to house, and then he's trying to open it up, and then he saw a snake. He was very upset about it because he was carrying the snake at home, and then he was trying to just push the snake, and then he thought the snake didn't do anything, or maybe a non-venomous snake. Anyways, this snake, they say it was a cobra. With a lot of difficulty, he was stuck inside the firewood stack. Went to see the sage, that evening, and then in Buddhism, usually the teachers, Buddha, senior monks, they used to ask from the followers, how is your precept, observance? And then the sage asked from the snake, how are you doing? How are you doing with your precept? See what happened. Because I took the precept, see what happened to me in my process in my journey to protect the precept. And then the sage asked, what happened to you? You know what, this happened. I was stuck inside a firewood stack. I didn't want to bite because I want to protect my precepts. And then this happened to me. And the sage told the snake at that time, you know what? I didn't tell you not to hiss. I told you not to bite, right? That's a good thing. So when you are practicing good things, don't be a victim. Don't fall prey to people who are trying to misuse you, who think that you are submissive. It's not like you are showing kind of an aggressive behavior. You're trying to like be strong, and you're not giving them a chance to misuse you, victimize you. So that's what we need to learn from this example. Not like you can hit someone, you can do a bad thing. No. But don't give kind of a impression that you can't victimize me. I know you can't do that. That kind of a perception, that kind of a impression towards those people. If you are trying to show you are over virtual about stuff, over virtuous, then the people will start picking on you, which is pretty bad. I think that makes sense.
Thank you, Bhante. Bhante, I have one question directed at you. The question is, are those people who are spiritual coping better in COVID-19 than those who are not spiritual?
Well, first we need to define what is being spiritual, what is not being spiritual. I think people who might think they are not spiritual, they don't know what is being spiritual. Because spiritual basically means to me that you are taking care of your mind and soul, right? So I think everybody is doing that. But there are people who take an initiative to further explore a particular journey. It could be a yoga practice, it could be a mindfulness practice. Now it could be a temple practice, it could be something much rigorous than a normal mindfulness thing. So I don't see there is a huge difference and effect between these two, because I think in today's world everybody is trying to do that. But if there is someone who is completely a person who's amoral, who doesn't believe good things, this person could be an issue. This person could be facing a lot of problems more than the other people who know Dhamma or spirituality. But I think a lot of people are spiritual, even they don't call themselves a spiritual being.
Okay. Do we have any other question from participants here in the Zoom? We have about probably another 7 more minutes left. Right. So far, very good questions. Yes, Sister Xiaomei.
Sorry. Okay. Just to add on to Pauline's question about how being a compassionate person, how do we then work with in the commercial world? Because I came from the corporate before. It was really a struggle. As in, we need to be assertive, non-aggressive, but at the same time, we need to be compassionate to the environment. In this case, how do we tap on this rain to deal with the situation? I mean, as what Pauline has described in the commercial world, the happenings there. Back to you, Bhante.
Do you want me to answer? I thought that Mong will take an initiative before me. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I will answer. Yeah, I will answer.
Yeah.
Because you You're pointing at me.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I know people are dealing with different worlds now. As you mentioned, Pauline, and you,
Yeah.
it's the corporate world, and you have your own ethics in your corporate, environment. At the same time, you need to be good employees,
Good colleagues. Yeah.
compassionate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are times people in those industries get, out of the path, who might be, especially you are referring to this situation now. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people losing their jobs. Their wages are being cut by their employees. So in this kind of situation, I think one needs to understand these different worlds, especially working perspectives. At the same time, like Brother Mong mentioned, we need to think this is transient. This is not permanent. This could change. I think not just few of us, but this is happening to everybody in the world. Like I know I have friends who having some issues, some health issues. They say, you know what? I have a lot of pains from this sickness, but I have more than I have friends who have health issues more than me. They have cancers, they have other things. So when I'm reflecting upon the pain that I have with those people, I feel I'm okay. I'm okay. I try to substitute my that thought. So the first thing is that we need to believe this will change. We'll get back to normal. Second thing is patiently looking at what are going on in the corporate world nowadays, far and wide, and trying to practice, the highest forms of, virtues as given in the Buddhism. Buddha says, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekka, these four have to be practiced equally. Some people only practice loving kindness, metta. They won't go to the second, higher state called karuna, compassion. What about mudita? What about upekka? I think that's the highest kusala in the Buddhist teachings. Trying to be, equanimous, right, about what's going on. So when you look into different virtues in those four Brahma Viharas, I think you will find out this is a place I should kind of like slow down and look into what's going on, so that I'm trying to develop my perspective mindfully at the same time with the rest of the virtues, and you will figure out. So corporate world is a big world, and there are a lot of chains. So we never know what's going to happen. So let's keep an eye on that patiently and accept the good things, and hopefully good things will happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe could I just add on? Could I add on a little bit
Okay.
about
Yeah.
the question by Charmaine and Pauline? I know we have about 2 minutes. I will do a very fast one. The first thing is that we ask ourselves, are we giving ourselves permission to love ourselves? Oftentimes, when we felt that we are not fairly treated, even of much compassion that we have shown to others, there is, on the one hand, there is a certain level of restraint, and on the other hand, there is certain thing that is important to us, but we are not getting it. We are suppressing it. So it is the question to ask ourselves is, how much do I value my self-worth? How much do I give permission for self-compassion, to love myself before before the external environment is affecting me? So it's really the question about self-worth. Being compassionate, being kind is not a sign of weakness, but it is a sign of strength. It is a strength. So being able to give that permission to ourselves of self-compassion self-value and self-worth. That does not mean that we tell people how good we are, but being firm, being confident, that will be manifest as a way that people will see through us. And slowly over time, when we give other permission to know us better, what is okay for us and what is not, what we can accept, what we cannot accept. So I think that will be manifest in that way.
Thank you, Brother
Thank
Mong.
you.
Just to add something, actually this only started to occur when as I find that my departments fall. So that's why so sometimes I'm wondering whether it's the right thing to stay on in corporate world also, because I can foresee that this will be an issue in future. Thanks.
Brother Mong, you want to make one final comment? Right.
Always, there's a story that I heard from somewhere. It is that in life there are important decisions that we often make. Between the crippled fox, the crippled fox story and the ferocious lion, we have a choice whether we want to choose to be the fox or to be the lion. But again, how much we value ourselves and how much we affirm ourselves, we have to give ourselves that affirmation, because oftentimes we have taken others' opinions to define who we are. Have we given ourselves permission to define who we are? And that is, I think, is important in that sense. Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thank you, Bhante and Brother Mong and everybody who joined us in this morning 1.5 session. Just let me highlight a few things that I captured. Bhante talks about rain, something easy to remember, but the essence of the rain is really, Bhante, the way I look at it is about internal realization, right? Recognizing the situation and accepting it, and even further investigate, and most important, detach, non-identification. A lot got to deal with internally working towards oneself. In very much the same way like what Brother Mong has mentioned several times about working from within, right? So you hear from both speakers, it all starts within oneself, right? And if you work towards oneself, and you also hear from both of them, have the compassion towards yourself, then you're better prepared to deal with the many situations that COVID-19 present to us. I mean, certainly COVID-19 has made the situation much more apparent. Like you say, the time spent at home creates a lot more situation whereby you never deal it before, right? The extent of interaction is a lot more than before, right? So beginning with oneself is always a good starting point, like the Buddha did, right? When you recognize the situation as what Bhante says and try to detach and cultivate compassion, then that will be a good journey, regardless of whether you're dealing with your bosses, with your colleagues, with your parents, with your children, with your friends, right? So I thank you once again from everybody to come and post the question, share your thoughts, as well as for Bhante and Brother Mong to take the time to share their wisdom and their experiences. I also like to thank my brothers from Compassion Multiply who put this together, Brother Ding Yuan, Brother Hanif, Brother Kakiet, and Sister Renzi. We thought that our little contribution from Compassion Multiply is to have this forum session where people are willing to share some of the experiences they're going through this period and get some ideas. So I hope it has benefited everyone. Do drop into our Facebook, Compassion Multiply. What we try to do is to share words of compassion with everyone, right? And hopefully from that words of compassion, we can take another step in our journey towards helping others. So thank you everyone, and Yes, Bhante?
Yeah, before the close, I want to say the name of the book: 8 Buddhist Tips to Overcome COVID-19 Fear. You could access the book on Google Play.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing us to your book that you've written on the 8 Buddhist tips to overcome
COVID-19 fear. I think it's related to.
Yes, very timely, and interestingly enough, Bhante, you start with Japanese.
Japanese too, yeah. I have 2 books.
So have a good Sunday, everyone, and like we say now, Selamat Hari Raya to everybody too. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suki Motu.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Want to
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.